Hello, and welcome back to the Adult Volunteer Literacy Tutor Training Program. We are nearing the end of the videos and your training. Congratulations! We only have a few sections left, but make sure to stick it out and listen to the rest of what we have to pass along. We can't wait for you to take everything you have learned and start tutoring. Today is all about finishing out our 4 skills comprehension videos with listening and speaking comprehension. Additionally, we have a math comprehension video to give us some specified instruction and help with math tutoring. Now though, let's dive right in to listening and speaking comprehension and some of the things you need to be aware of as a tutor. Now, the majority of listening comprehension techniques can be used as speaking comprehension techniques, much like reading and writing. Speaking and listening are so closely linked, it's hard to discuss one without working with the other. There are ways you can have your learner listen to videos and recordings if they want to work on explicitly listening. You can have them listen to music, audiobooks, videos, and even yourself and others talk to just focus on listening. However, speaking is a great tool to practice some listening, as having the learners listen to themselves helps with recognizing differences and solidifying the knowledge, especially for auditory and haptic learners. As for speaking practice, it's nearly impossible to practice speaking comprehension without a little bit of listening, since you will have to listen to each other to have a conversation, and they will still be listening to themselves as they talk. This is why, for our purposes, we are doing listening and speaking together. Many of the techniques can be used for both. Another thing to note as we get into listening and speaking, comprehension is just what is a problem in listening and speaking. This is most clearly shown when we look at our English language learners, or ELs, and on the topic of accents. Having an accent is not a failure in comprehension or ability. As long as you understand what they mean, then that is a success. Remember what our understanding of comprehension is: being able to make meaning, understand, and communicate. Some learners will want to keep their accent and ensure understanding with it, as they feel their accent is part of who they are. Some don't, but it's up to the learner to decide. With that out of the way, let's finally get to those techniques. Do you remember the poem we read called English by T.S. Eliot, with tough and bow and cough and dough? English is one of the more annoying languages when it comes to pronunciation and listening. Reading can sometimes hinder the listening and speaking process without a guide. Considering all 4 words I said, tough, bow, cough, and dough, all are spelled the same except for the first letter, yet all sound different. So we might have to do some more direct instruction for techniques to bolster listening comprehension. One such technique is to create a sound dictionary. You can use a sheet of paper like it's shown here, or some note cards. As you can see in the activity, it's focused more on listening with the tutor saying most of the words and the learner responding. This is good. When you're focused on listening comprehension, you want it to be only about listening. This activity is a bit lengthy, as you will be making repeated sounds for the single consonant, but this is great practice for listening, as hearing it repeatedly will help them become familiar with the sound and be able to recognize it in different situations. Let's go through one of these together, starting with the word sun. The goal of the activity is to make a sound dictionary entry for the letter S and the sound S. You will need a piece of paper for this, or write along in your packet. This can be done on a note card for individual letters and words, or one page for multiple words of the same letter with different sounds. How you organize it is up to you and your learner. To start, you will write the letter, in this case, S, and say, "This is an S." Ask your learner what the name of the letter is. Then, ask them to listen for the sound, or S, at the beginning of these words: sun, sink, socks, sandwich. Make sure to exaggerate and enunciate the word that you're looking on and the sound. Do they hear the sound? They should reply with yes. You can have them put these words down on the page, like here, for sharing the same sound. Then have them repeat the word after you. Sun, sink, socks, sandwich. As you can see, the second action is the tutor, you, pointing to what is implied to be a problem sound, with a short and simple word, sun. Or you can ask the learner what they want their keyword to be. Give them agency, remember? So the tutor would point to the word sun and ask, what is your keyword? The learner should reply with sun. You then would ask, what is the sound of S? The learner should say S, like in sun, not just the letter S. You can have the learner practice writing the letter and the word if they need to make it, making the sound as they do so for some visual and haptic learning with listening, a primarily auditory skill. The next step is to look at the capital S. We know that sometimes the sound for a capital isn't the same as lowercase, but it is for S. You would say something like, this is a capital S. The same name, the same sound. You can use a capital letter for a name that begins with S or the first word in a sentence. Remember, you can adapt all these techniques to your level of learner. You want it to be level appropriate and treat them appropriately. Lastly, you want to start using words that aren't as obvious. Ask the learner to listen to words as you say them, and if they start with the S sound. Sausage, forest, Monday, salad, summer. Some of these are obviously yes or no, which is good. That's what we want. We don't want to try and stump them early on, but a more difficult word like forest is a good way to see how they are progressing. If they're having issues with forest, then stay with the starting S sound. If they haven't, you can move forward. See how you can have this take place over multiple lessons? You have all sorts of room to work with here. Then you can move to the sound at the end of the word. Gas, kiss, boss. Have them repeat the word and ask what is the last sound in these words. They should reply with S. Then ask what is the name of the letter, tying it all back together. They should remember that it's an S. This technique may seem repetitive, but it's effective in allowing the learner practice. This is something you would want to repeat a few times over a few sessions. Practice and repetition, along with the familiarity, will help ingrain the sound. The thing with listening is it only happens for a second. It's not like reading that you can just go back and reread. Once you speak, the sound is gone in a flash. That's why repetition for listening and speaking techniques and activities is incredibly important. One thing to keep in mind as we work with listening and speaking comprehension is how vowel sounds are made. This goes well with consonants, and you can use the same technique above to add vowel sounds to your sound dictionary. However, vowels are a little special, in case you didn't know. Vowels make up the main sounds of English, and we move our mouths in different ways to make them. Remember, cough, bow, dough, bow. It's a little confusing, but once it's explained, it makes sense. This is your mouth. See the nose and the ear? And down here, with all the letters, is your mouth. And the area of the mouth these sounds are made. Let's look at the E sound. An eek. E is up in front. You need to smile to make it E. Now, how does this help with listening? Well, it gives the learner some visual hint of what sound to expect. This is also helpful with speaking. This could be something fun to go over with their learners if they are auditory or haptic. And it's just fun together to try and make all the sounds and see them. There are plenty of online sites that have diagrams and videos of this. Let's look at one now. We can see here. There's also this cool website called Youglish. Youglish lets you search YouTube for a certain word and finds hundreds of videos containing that word. Let me show you. 1 second as I pull it up. See, this is Youglish. You can search for phrases and words and let your learner listen. It pulls up informative videos and movie clips that all contain the word or phrase that you search for. For an example, let's search the word sandwich. It pulled up 5,919. The other day I just looked it up and had 5,854, so it's constantly updating. That's just instances of the word sandwich. And the clip starts right before the word with subtitles to provide a visual. See down here? Popular sandwich. Right before the word with subtitles to provide a visual as well. This is a great tool for listening practice and eases the pressure on you to find videos with a single word or sound on it. You can click here to find more videos. It also highlights the word. All sorts of different kinds of videos, and it shows you where they're from. All right, let's get back to the PowerPoint slide. All right, next we should talk briefly about phonics. Not hooked on phonics, but we can start hearing and seeing phonics. Phonics helps learners see and hear the connection between letters and sounds they represent. Many already know this, but you might come across one that needs help, and that's okay. When it comes to phonics, you want to make sure it's related to other material you are working on and not just focus on phonics. It's not that exciting or engaging. It will also require some direct instruction that we generally want to avoid as tutors. With this, you would begin by teaching letters the learner needs, usually letters and sounds that have what is called sustained sounds. S, M, S, and F. These are easier to say and hear, as we saw with sun, because it has the same sound no matter whether it is beginning, middle, end, capital, or lowercase to say and hear, than say discriminating between B and D. So B and D. This is a popular problem sound with English language learners. Other learners may not hear the letter-sound connections well because of their learning style or even learning disabilities. In that case, we want to focus on what we call sight words, which is the real reason we're mentioning phonics, because we need to talk about sight words. Just remember, if you ever need to do a phonics exercise, make sure to keep it short and simple. So, what are sight words? Sight words, or sight vocabulary, is a stock of words immediately recognized and understood by the reader. How does this relate to listening comprehension? Well, many of these sight words are incredibly important for our learners to understand in reading and listening. They need to have the ability to listen to these sight words and know their meaning, as well as be able to read them instantly. They shouldn't be having to take the time to process them. Sight words are learned as complete units, or whole words, as whole words. It's important for the learner to develop a large and growing command of such words in order to reach the major goal of reading and listening, to understand the meaning of what is being read and said. Be careful not to use lists of words that have little to no meaning to the learner. Experienced texts or audiobooks, printed material, and videos in the learner's interest areas can provide a rich source of sight words. But just what are sight words? Sight words fall into 4 categories, seen here. 1. Survival words. Words learners need immediately in day-to-day living and can be related to safety, jobs, consumerism, family, whatever the learner needs to be able to read and hear. Examples include safety-related words like danger, hospital, police, emergency, poison. Job-related words include social security, company, office worker, official, and others like that. Consumer-related words include post office, repair, bank, loan, etc. 2. Service or utility words. These occur frequently in written material, but are often not phonetically regular, such as the, a, and, but, when, where, how, why. 3. Irregularly spelled words. These just have to be taught as sight words, direct instruction, like of, have, who, and give. Introductory words in a pattern series is number 4. These are usually taught as sight word, such as make would be taught as a sight word if it is not already known from the AKE pattern. Bake and cake would be taught pattern as words as well. But wait a second, what are pattern words? Pattern words are words that are the same except for one letter, usually the first letter. Remember dough, cough, bow, like cap, map, lap, sap. These are part of the AP pattern or app pattern with the first letter changing. Same as make, bake, cake as part of the AKE pattern. These can be recognized in more difficult words like sight, right, might, bright, blight as part of the IT pattern. Generally, only look at 3 to 4 words at a time because any more will be overwhelming. You can introduce more words later as you continue to build. Sight words are generally taught, generally by having learners look at one word at a time and associate the printed word with the spoken word. Learners generally know the meanings anyway, but they just need to connect them to English or in a different form. Building a sight word vocabulary is part of tutoring at all reading levels and listening levels. When learners recognize many words in a sentence on sight or immediately hearing it, they can often figure out the meaning of the entire sentence without needing to know or intimately understand every single word. This ability to note what makes sense in a passage, written or heard, is called context clues. The use of context clues is a skill good readers and listeners possess. Having a sight vocabulary helps readers predict what words will most likely make sense in a given story, increase reading and listening fluency, and leads to better comprehension. It also gives them clues when they start hearing those words of what's going to come and let them make predictions. Also, some earlier understanding so they can connect it earlier on. Sometimes tutors find themselves in the trap of teaching lists instead of teaching reading. Don't fall into this trap. The key is to use lists that are relevant to individual learners. Always find out what the learners are interested in. For example, a homemaker usually keeps a list of items that are needed at the store. A security officer might need a checklist while making rounds. Many of us keep lists of things we must do. Make a doctor's appointment, call the school, check on the phone bill. These lists can be used as teaching and tutoring tools. Memorizing lists of unrelated words, that is, words unrelated to the topic of the lesson, to each other, or to the learner's needs, is of little value. A worthwhile activity might be for you and your student and your learner to construct personal word lists together. So let's look at a technique for sight words. You can check it out here. You can see the checklist, so go ahead and read along. 1. You and your learner select words to be taught as sight words from experience, stories you've read, reading material, learner's personal list, or a survival list. 2. Ask your learner to pick one word. 3. Write or have your learner write the word in print on a small card. You should write the same word on the other side so they get used to reading different handwriting. Also, make sure you're saying them as well so they can start listening to different voices of saying the same word. Ask the learner to put the word in a new sentence. 5. Teach the word by having the learner read the word aloud while looking at the word card. 6. Have the learner match the word card to the word in the sentence, saying the word as it's being matched. This way, they're listening to it as well as reading it. 7. Go on if they succeed. If they don't, just go ahead and repeat step 5. Repeat it as many times as necessary. Try different sentences if you need to. 8. Ask the learner to shuffle the word cards and practice rereading them. Make sure they're reading it aloud too. They need to be able to listen and read it on sight. 9. File the known word cards and keep others for additional practice. Don't forget about the known ones though. Make sure to come back to them. I've included some common sight words in your package for review. Questions? Confused? It's a lot to take in at once. So, Let's review what we went over. We discussed listening and speaking comprehension and how the two tend to blend together and the need for repetition. Remember, when you listen, it's gone in less than a second and you can't reread the sound. So repeating it is important for learning. We looked at how to make a sound dictionary of consonants, practicing with the letter S. There's a full page review in your packet. So if you need a refresher, follow that along and rewind this video to that section and go over it again. Speaking of rewinding videos, we looked at Youglish and again reinforced repetition. We also had some fun with vowel sounds and moving our mouths. It's awkward, but once you get past the initial weirdness, it's kind of fun and funny to do with your learner. Next, we looked briefly at pattern words and phonics. Remember, keep things appropriate for your learner's level and their interests and goals. Lastly, we discussed sight words and how listening is tied to reading and the importance of sight words. Remember, sight words is more than just seeing them, it's also listening to them. That's why we include it here. Make sure if you have any questions, please ask your literacy counselor or a fellow tutor. That's it for this one. Next time, we're going to talk about ESL or EL learners. Thanks for listening. See you then.